Welcome, friends of the Greasy Shop Rag. Today we're going to take a look at an Echo PPT265 Power Pruner. Customer complaint is that it's been sitting for a while and he wanted me to put a carburetor on it. So we'll take a look at this thing here. We're not going to get too excited about diagnosing anything else. I mean, the guy said put a carb on it. If I remember right, he supplied the carburetor. So that's what we're going to do. Now, sure, along the way, if we find something that has to be fixed, then we'll do that. The guy wasn't being a cheapskate or nothing. It's just, he wanted us to put a carburetor on it. So right now we're going to pull off the choke plate here to gain access to the carburetor. And we find, everything looks stock. Here's our new carb. We're just going to match it up and see if it looks the same. So the other day I was looking up at an acorn up in a tree, and I couldn't figure out why it was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it hit me. It hit me right here. Kind of hurt. So we got our new carburetor here. We're just going to see it looks the same. Yeah, I mean, it's the same style. Looks like the guy showed up with the right carb. We need to get the throttle cable off of here. And it's in a little slot. The ferrule's in a little slot in the carburetor. And that slot has got a pocket for that ferrule on one end. So when you put it back together, it's got to go a certain way. But you can see if we hold the throttle open, create some slack in the cable, we can pop that right out of there. We'll give the fuel the old sniff test. It smelled all right. Then we're going to pop the fuel lines off. You know, I was thinking about that acorn that hit me. And in a nutshell, it's an oak tree. So we got our carburetor removed now. Here's a heat shield and a gasket. And what are we doing? Oh, we're just going to wipe things down a little bit. So I was watching this documentary the other day about beavers cutting down trees. It was the best damn video I've ever seen. So it looks like we got that part cleaned up pretty decent. What are we looking at? We got a gasket here on the carburetor. Now, the guy didn't supply any gaskets. And if this is bad, we'll replace it. But we'll examine it here a little bit and clean it up and see what we got. What did the beaver say to the tree? It's been nice gnawing you. So we're going to put the fuel line on the carburetor, but this fuel line feels funky. It's just not right. I mean, yes, we could just yank the fuel line out of there and replace it. And we will. But that's kind of the parts cannon approach. Really, if you want to get good at this kind of stuff, you have to pay attention to what you have and what's going on. So I want to take a really closer look at this fuel line and kind of determine if the stock Echo line, how it holds up, whatever. I'm just being observant. And I would encourage you to do the same thing if you plan on this type of work. Along the way, people are going to ask you, what kind of fuel line do you like? Well, if you just yank it all out of the tank and throw it in the garbage and don't pay attention to what you have, you're not going to have a decent opinion on that. So that's all I'm doing here with this piece of fuel line. So what did the owl say to the sick tree to make it feel better? Nothing. The owl didn't give a hoot. All right, so Now we're firing up the parts can and we're going to put a new piece of fuel line on there. And we have the official Echo branded fuel line to replace the old piece of official Echo branded fuel line. We cut it to the same length. I actually like this line. I've seen that it holds up pretty good. Now, despite the fact that that piece felt really funky, there were no holes in it. It wasn't torn or anything like that. Just kind of aged from having old fuel working on it. So, what do you give a sick citrus tree? Lemonade. It's going to need some kind of aid. So we were able to push our new fuel line just through the rubber grommet, reach into the tank and grab it, pull it through. And we're going to need a new fuel filter because that one was just nasty. And if you are familiar, you'll notice that I'm putting a Husqvarna filter on this Echo pole saw. Will it ever run with that filter on there? I mean, it's not the right brand. Of course it will. As long as it's rated for the right size engine, you'll be fine. And that Husky filter is a decent filter. So now we're finally around to where we're going to connect the fuel lines to the carburetor. If you have a barbed fitting and a bare fitting, the barbed fitting is usually the one that has a fuel filter on it. And if you're not sure, you can put a line on one end and dip it in some fuel and pump the primer bulb and see which one's sucking and which one's pushing. Pretty basic stuff. So how did the idiot hurt himself raking leaves? He fell out of the tree. So here's where I was talking about connecting that ferrule to the carburetor. I'm going to drop the cable in the slot and make sure we have the open end that receives the ferrule facing the right direction. And then just a quick pull on the trigger will seat that. A couple yanks on the trigger to make sure it works right. There's our carb choke plate. We're just going to clean some schmutz off of it. And then we have to decide about gaskets. Now, I can reuse these gaskets. They're decent. I just want to make sure I put it on the right way so that everything, it'll fit two ways. I don't want to, all the recesses or grooves that are already in the gasket, I want them to line up the way they were. Better chance of everything sealing. So what's a chainsaw's favorite holiday? Arbor Day. Yeah, I know it's lame. They're all lame. Please. Alright, we're getting the carb cranked down decent. Just doing a little bit of an inspection there. We're going to put some fuel in it. What is a chainsaw's least favorite month? September. If you guys never tune in again, I get it. It's fine. But that was a funny joke. Actually, the delivery was the best part, right? So that's all I got for you on the Echo PPT265 Power Pruner carb replacement. Thanks for watching. Later.